Hey there, welcome to Mark in the Park, the podcast. I'm your host, Mark Milow, speaker, storyteller, and healthcare advocate. And this is the place for personal reflections, stories about mindset, hobbies, and purpose. And a reminder that life doesn't stop at a diagnosis. In fact, often the real journey begins after. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, everybody, and welcome again to the show, Mark in the Park, the podcast. I have got the distinct honor of having Peggy Faber with me today, and Peggy has done something rather remarkable. And this podcast is really designed to give some encouragement and to give some inspiration to people. And Peggy's story really, truly is an inspiration. And so, Peggy, I'm so glad that you joined today and that you can be on. You and I just met recently in a kind of fun way by your involvement with PPAC, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But as you and I talked, we discussed an achievement that you were able to do, and I found this absolutely fascinating. Here you are, a running enthusiast, getting out there to exercise and pursue your love of running, and along the way you set a goal for yourself to run a marathon in all 50 states, which to somebody who can't even run a half marathon sounds insane. But I mean, that's a lofty goal. And yet you have actually achieved this goal. You've actually run a marathon in all 50 states.
It has been a wonderful journey. It took me several years to do it. I had the goal to run a marathon in 1984. I can remember watching Joan Benoit Samuelson in the first women's marathon where they were told women were going to just die after 26 miles. And she came in and circled that stadium in LA. And I said, I'm going to do that one of these days. So it took a few years before I did my first one in 1996. I did the Portland Marathon. I did it in 4 hours and 11 minutes, which is a decent time. It's not super fast, but it's not super slow. People run a marathon and they cross the finish line and they either say, I'm never doing that again, or I can't wait to do that again. I fell in the I can't wait camp. I kept running. Most marathoners want to qualify for the Boston Marathon. You have to be pretty fast for that. And as I said, I was fast, but just not that fast. So after 10 attempts to qualify for Boston, I decided to find another goal that would support me continuing to run, continuing the marathon lifestyle. And I found this group called the 50 States Club. They weren't fast. They were fun. They liked to race. They liked to race a lot, which meant they didn't go out their hardest because they might have another one in a couple of weeks. I found that group and I slowly but surely started ticking off the states. At first it was more of a, well, where do we want to go on vacation? Let's find a marathon. And then I can justify, taking the time off and going on vacation. That's how it started. And there was some obstacles along the way. There's obstacles, I think, in every journey and every challenge that's worth going for, but we persevered, overcame them, and made it to the finish line.
So you started in 1996, Portland, right?
Mm-hmm. Portland.
And when did you do the last one? When was the 50th?
It was last September 2024. But I will say I really didn't start looking at the states until about 2010.
Okay. So 20th September. Too bad it wasn't the 21st of September because I love that song by Earth, Wind, and Fire. But I digress. But this is really cool. So obstacles along the way. I'm sure there was times where you were tired, you were fatigued. There was probably logistical challenges getting to places. But your challenge, you have one of the bigger challenges that I've heard of along the way of your pursuit of 50 marathons in 50 states. You were diagnosed with Parkinson's halfway through, right? That is a huge obstacle to overcome.
It was a huge obstacle. You mentioned travel issues. We had all of them. I thought I left my shoes at home one time and I was about to go out and buy another pair when my daughter walked in and said, "Oh, Mom, I grabbed your backpack, not mine." Found my shoes. There were all kinds of obstacles. The biggest one definitely was the Parkinson's diagnosis. It took me by surprise, but I will say my first tremor occurred after I flew a red-eye flight after finishing a marathon. And I thought it was just stress. A
Mm.
few weeks later, I was in another marathon. My mom had passed away, and I decided to do the race anyway in her honor. And I had the tremors there. So I went to the doctor pretty quickly, got the Parkinson's diagnosis, and thought, how am I going to do these last 24 marathons? I asked the neurologist, and she said, there's not a lot of people with Parkinson's that do marathons, so I can't really give you much guidance. She said, but I have faith in you, and I think you're going to do it, and then you can just write a book and tell us all about it.
Wow. So you had the support of your neurologist. I mean, you can't talk against it, so go for it, right?
That's about what she said. I was lucky to have a movement disorder specialist who had also run a couple marathons, so she was in there pulling for me. And the
Wow.
visits, I see the neurologist twice a year. The first thing she always said, "What number are we on? What number are we on? How are you doing? We still gonna make it?" So she was a very good cheerleader for me.
Nice, nice. And so you completed the last half of these 50 with Parkinson's. I'm sorry, what year were you diagnosed? I'm sorry, I didn't ask that.
2018.
2018. Okay. Wow. So 2018. So in the last 7 years, I guess you've done the lot. That's a lot of marathons in 7 years with Parkinson's. It's a lot to do without Parkinson's. So that's an incredible pace.
I definitely slowed down. When I first started, I was younger and I was able to run the entire marathon pretty solidly, but time, age, a couple of falls here and there. I started doing a run walk, which is like a 4-minute run, a 1-minute walk, and then a few more injuries, a few more marathons. It became a walk run. So I'd walk for 4 minutes and run for a minute. And then I actually fell pretty hard in New York on marathon number 48. And I understand where the term face plant comes from. My whole face, the side of my body. It had to do with one of the things I struggled with was medication during the race. And this is where there was no guidance. And my neurologist was like, you're just going to have to play around with it until you get it right. Well, this was a day I didn't get it right. I felt dizzy, I was dehydrated, and I just wiped out. I ended up with a knee brace for 6 months, eventually having a knee replacement. But we turned that around, and I had 3 races to go, and I felt like I was starting over from day one, which in reality I was. But I got number 48 in Pennsylvania, 49 in Massachusetts, and 50 was actually the same race in New York, simply because that's the way the dice fell, and that was the availability of the races in the states that I needed. So I had a bit of a mental challenge that I overcame, as well as completing the last marathon.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Now, you said there's a club for this, right? Which I was not aware of, but there's a club for the 50 state runner people?
It's called the 50 States Marathon Club. It's run by 2 people, Paula and Steve Boone, out of Houston, California, or Houston, Texas. They are a great couple. They each have several hundred marathons under their belt. They just do a marvelous job. There's over 5,000 members in the club. You have to run a marathon in 10 states before you can enter the club. I was looking at my finisher ranking, and it changes because you have to submit all your races and get them certified. So someone might have finished before me, but just not gotten certified. So right now I'm at about the 740th female to ever complete this 50 states marathon challenge. That's
Wow.
in the club. And I would think most people would be in the club if they're going around all 50 states.
Wow. And how many of those have had Parkinson's? You don't really know, right?
We don't really know. I have certainly asked. I've sat down with the organizers, and she gave me the names of a couple of people that I, immediately stalked on some of the athlete stalking sites. And I've reached out to a few of them just as partners in crime. How do you handle this marathon? There's definitely some people that are still running, and they're running competitively. The Boston Marathon has a separate division for people with people with Parkinson's or other neurological diseases. And these people are fast. I will not say that I'm fast, but I am stubborn and dedicated. And I set a goal to finish, and I was going to do it, and I did.
Good for you. That is amazing and so inspiring. It really is. That is something that you don't have to have Parkinson's to be inspired by that story. I mean, just to do it alone would be amazing, but to do it as you work through the Parkinson's diagnosis, that is fantastic.
When I was first diagnosed, I didn't take meds. I was going to just fight it with exercise, and a lot of people have that attitude. And I don't know that you need medication right off the bat, but by about mile 20, I looked pretty bad. I looked like I needed medication. And people would come by and they'd say, ma'am, are you okay? Lady, do you need me to get you some help? There's an aid station up ahead. And I would tell them, no, I'm fine. This is Parkinson's. This is what it looks like. Help us find a cure. After a couple of marathons of going through that, I had a shirt made and it said, 50 States Countdown, Fighting Parkinson's 1 mile at a time. That really turned the tide on attitudes. So I may still look bad, but people would come up and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're out here doing this and you have Parkinson's. That's so fantastic. I would have people that would jog up next to me and say, my husband just got diagnosed, or my father's had Parkinson's. He doesn't do anything. What should I tell him? I've had people take pictures of the back of me so they'd get my shirt so they could show it to a friend or a loved one, and I would give them my stats. I have 7 more to go or 12 more to go. And a lot of times the newcomers didn't know anything about how exercise can really play a big role in slowing the progression down. Right. I became a therapist along the routes of the various races.
Well, that is fantastic. And with that, I'm going to go down the road of one of my segments of the show. That segment is called Mark My Words. Okay, so in Mark My Words, I give a little bit of an editorial about the topic that we're talking about.
Okay.
Now, your story is inspiring, it is engaging, and it is lovely to hear. But I know that there's some people out there with Parkinson's that are like, dude, I can't even walk around the block. I've got dystonia so bad my foot clubs underneath my leg. I mean, I can't even walk, let alone do this, right? Understood. But the point you just made, there's a hashtag I've used, and it sounds a little silly, but a hashtag I've used in some of my posts, motion is lotion. And we know that the only thing that fights the progression of Parkinson's is physical activity, keeping in motion, keep moving, keep exercising. So if you can run a marathon, great. If you can walk around, like your shirt said, 1 mile at a time, right? Even 1 block at a time. So if you're at home, you have Parkinson's and you can't do a marathon, but you can get on that exercise bike, or you can take a walk around the block or something. Do it, because that's the one thing that's going to help you stave off or to slow down the progression of Parkinson's. So my 2 cents here, Mark My Words, but I had to take that opportunity because I love that shirt. 1 mile at a time, and sometimes that's what it takes in our life. Is our goals have to be how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time, right? And so the miles are accumulated one mile at a time. So, anyways, thank you for sharing that. That is amazing. Now, out of all the races you did, do you have like a favorite or a couple favorites that you liked more than others?
I do have several favorites. They're all my favorite when I'm doing them and when I'm crossing that finish line. The last race will always be very special to me. The race director's father had Parkinson's, and she contacted me when I had contacted her and said, hey, I'm going to do my 50th state. I'm doing a fundraiser for the Parkinson's Foundation. Can I have bib number 50? And she called me back and said, oh my gosh, I'm in tears when I read your story. My dad just passed away after living with Parkinson's for several years. Can I share your story with my staff and my team? And I said, oh, of course. I didn't realize she had 700 volunteers. And the race took place in a fairly small town. So it was the whole town that knew about me. And there were 5 of us that did the full marathon together, and then 2 more met us at mile 21. So we were a pretty big group, and we were all wearing Parkinson's champion shirts. So when I came, most people knew who I was, and it was one of those, there she is. Yay! I was doing the princess wave the whole time. That town came out and supported me and my family and my friends better than I've ever seen. And it was fantastic. It will always be my favorite.
Wow. And to touch the organizer whose father had Parkinson's, that's so inspiring. It's amazing.
Yeah, so, the organizer they had actually done a bike ride in her father's honor before, mainly to check the mileage on the marathon course, and they had a fundraiser, and she said they didn't know how to get it to the Parkinson's Foundation, so they just donated it to me, and it went, flowed through me and got to the Parkinson's Foundation. So that was
very
really
nice.
Great. Yeah, I do have some other favorites.
Yeah, you have another favorite. Yep, absolutely.
One thing we started doing was pairing vacations with the marathons, and I think the highlight was we went to Louisville, Kentucky, and watched the Kentucky Derby on TV, but we actually went to the Kentucky Oats the day before, which is the running of the fillies. And we had the big hats with the flowers. Just had an amazing time at that. Then from there, we drove to Packet Pickup across the river for the Cincinnati Flying Pig Marathon. And that was a great marathon. So weekends like that really, really just made the journey even more special.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I've been to that northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, which, by the way, in the wintertime is really cold, but it would be a really nice time in the springtime to be there. So that's awesome.
It was wonderful. I was there, and I'm in Oregon, and it was still very cold in May. We ended up running with a guy from New York, and we were both saying how we hadn't even pulled our shorts out, and we're in shorts and a tank top. We are not used to this heat. He was fine.
Man. Wow. Well, that is truly amazing. And with that, you've been on TV. I saw a number of interviews that you've done on TV and whatnot, and I love the fact that you're out there, not just telling your story about the marathon achievement, but also giving visibility to Parkinson's and being that advocate. So thank you for doing that. You're
when
a member
I started
of the
with the
program.
Parkinson's Champions, they said, we're not just about the money. We think you have a great story, and we're going to set 3 goals for you. One was to fundraise, one was to inspire others, and one was to raise awareness. The fundraising pretty much stopped after I crossed that finish line, but the inspiring others and the raising awareness has really, it's actually meant more to me than I expected. I love when I hear people say, gosh, you're so inspiring. You made me get up and walk the dog twice today rather than once, or things along those lines really make you feel good.
That is awesome. Yeah. Well, and that goes to even how you and I met. I mentioned PPAC, and for those that don't know, with the Parkinson's Foundation, they actually have it in their charter, in their foundation charter, to have a group of people that the leadership would kind of run and filter their ideas through. And that is a group of people that have Parkinson's or their caregivers, so that all their decisions and all their ideas have the stamp of blessing from the people with Parkinson's themselves. And I really applaud the Parkinson's Foundation for having this. And that committee is called the People with Parkinson's Advisory Council, or PPAC, PPAC. And I'm a member of the PPAC committee. I'm actually a senior member. You serve a 3-year term. I'm actually on the backside as I'm heading out the door in less than a year. But it's been a tremendous opportunity for me. And as a senior member, they asked me to welcome you to the PPAC committee and to give you a call. And so we did a phone call and an introduction. And through that conversation, I mean, I'm the senior member of PPAC, but you're inspiring me and you're encouraging me. I'm like, this is fantastic stuff. And it was just a pleasure to meet you that way. So I may be the more senior member, but you're doing some wonderful things. And I really, really love that. And I know that your time in PPAC is going to be fascinating and amazing. Trust me, it's just starting for you, but you got some great things ahead there.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I have to say, I think they did a good job pairing us up. I keep referring to you as like my big brother in the fraternity. What it kind of feels like.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Except for I was a horrible brother to my brother, so you might want to choose something else. But just saying. But we actually have a event coming up here in September where the Centers of Excellence leadership is going to be together outside the Las Vegas area. And that is going to be a fantastic event. Literally some of the top names in Parkinson's research and Parkinson's advocacy are going to be there. And because it's the Centers of Excellence that the Parkinson's Foundation has across the nation, the leadership coming together along with top doctors and researchers and medical clinicians and stuff. So I look forward to that. You will really enjoy that. Trust me. But the best part about it is getting to know the other members of the team. It's just a fantastic group of people, and I think you're really going to love that. So good stuff.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Well, what else have you done with your Parkinson's advocacy? Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
One of the things, well, I should say, I am a proud grandmother of a new little granddaughter, and my husband and I decided we wanted to be around when she was born. So we, for the first time ever, snowbirded in Huntington Beach, California. And in Fountain Valley, California, which is just a few miles away, there's this fantastic gym called Road Fitness and Wellness. And they are a Parkinson-centric gym. And I absolutely loved it. I was there for almost 4 hours, 5 days a week. I think twice a week. Wow. I did 3 hours. So I jumped in feet first, worked my tail off down there, made some great friends. Along the way, I heard of a SoCal ride, run, and walk event that one of the husbands of a wife that has Parkinson's and goes to the gym puts on. And they knew I was down there. They heard my story, and they asked me if I would do the send-off speech for the runners and the walkers. So I got to do that, and that was pretty amazing. That event raised over $400,000. I'd like to say, I had a big influence in that. I really didn't. I just was the one who gave a little speech, told my story, got everybody cheering and excited, and everybody went out the.
That's awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
Well, you also mentioned that you took part in writing a book too, didn't you?
I did. I don't know if you can see it. This is a book that a gentleman, Dr. George Ackerman, kind of oversaw it. And what he wanted to do was show, to follow the line that exercise slows progression, but to showcase it by finding athletes with Parkinson's, and each athlete wrote a chapter on their particular sport. I think there's 23 chapters in the book, so that's 23 authors and 23 sports. There's chapters on bowling, horseback riding, swimming, tennis, pickleball, ballet. There's plenty of them, but each story kind of follows the personal journey of the person that wrote it, how, the history of the sport and how it's helping them fight Parkinson's. So nice. I was asked to do that. In the back of my mind, there's a little bit of me that wants to write a book about my 50 states journey and the stories from each 50 states. So I thought, well, this will be a good practice run to just write a chapter. And I worked really hard on it, but I was under a little bit of a time deadline. I was late I don't think he found any marathoners until he found me, and I didn't have a whole lot of time. So I wrote it pretty quickly, reviewed it myself several times. I had my husband, my daughter's a librarian, I had her review it, and they made very little changes when I submitted it. Very, very few changes. So I thought, maybe I know how to write. And I think it's just, I have good stories. So putting those good stories on paper is a goal of mine. But this is a great book. I've talked it up in like my Parkinson's boxing classes, or I play ping pong with the Parkinson's group. And several people have purchased the book, and really they tell me how much they enjoy it. What I find is if I read a chapter and it's a sport that I may not have taken up, it kind of makes me want to try it. It's like,
yeah,
that kind of sounds fun.
What's the title of the book again? As you held it up there, I didn't get it to see it.
It's called Sports, Exercise, and Slowing the Progressions of Parkinson's Disease. It actually
Nice.
has 23 authors. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it in paperback or the Kindle version. Um,
Okay. Well, and I'll
so
put a link to that in our show notes for those that are interested.
okay.
They can click on that link and go there. And you mentioned George Ackerman. George is a buddy of mine. He and I have done a podcast together, and he's just a fantastic warrior, literally a warrior for Parkinson's. I don't think he ever sleeps. I don't think he gets enough rest in recuperation. He's going constantly, but he definitely has a passion for the Parkinson's community and
Yeah.
heart. And so it's great to see you pairing up with him because he's a great guy.
Yeah, I think the project was more cumbersome than he imagined, and I felt really good that mine didn't cause a lot of problems. That I got it in, it was approved, and woo, knock one off.
There
But he
you
was
go.
great to work with. I enjoyed
No,
meeting
he's
him.
a fantastic guy. He really is.
Yeah.
I love the man. I truly do. Well, okay. So I also want to ask you some other questions too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So your story is inspiring and gave me a lot of inspiration, but what inspires you? What puts the wind in your sails? What makes you fly?
What inspires me is seeing a challenge or a big goal, and it doesn't have to be me going after it, other people going after the goals. It's really the desire, the fight that I'm going to give it my best. I love watching people take that attitude and that approach, and it boosts boosts me up and puts me back out there. So I think that's it. Really, really big goals, big challenges, and not giving up.
Gotcha. So when you talk about your tool bag to fight Parkinson's, a lot of Parkinson's obviously is movement related. How do non-movement symptoms impact you? I mean, is that a fair question, or am I saying that correctly? I mean, you have a tremor. You mentioned that, but what are the symptoms that you wrestle with the most?
I get cramps in my legs a lot. That
Mm.
really bothers me. It hinders sleep. It definitely happens more in the middle of the night than any other time. Um, Gosh, I feel like I'm starting to sway when I stand for a long time. It's usually at church. I feel bad getting mad at church,
Yeah,
but that's what I notice it the most because I'm trying to stand still, and I'm not a stand still person. I'm usually moving. Um,
right. Well, running and staying fit not only helps our Parkinson's, it helps our overall health as well. And, I've got a funny thing going on with my health. I tell you, I only get sick on the weekdays. So I was told that that's because I have a weekend immune system. That's a weekend immune system.
Gotcha.
Okay, that was a really bad joke. Anyways, so how do you define resilience? What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience is simply getting back up, not giving up, getting out there, just continuing to work to strive. I get again my New York marathon. When it was my 48th marathon, I had some trouble, and it was definitely Parkinson's influenced. It was also very hot. I also had cucumber Gatorade, which was not a good thing for me, and I fell pretty hard. Recovering from that definitely took resilience. I had 3 more marathons. It was like starting from scratch from day one, being excited that I went a mile. To me, that's resilience, just not giving up and just staying with it and fighting it to the end.
That is a great definition and one that you've lived physically as well as emotionally. You've fallen during the race and had to get back up, and that saying, well, and hate to quote him like a philosopher, but Sylvester Stallone in one of his movies is like, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up, right? But I believe in that. That's true. It's like, it doesn't matter how many times you go down, you have to keep getting back up, even when it's not. That was a horrible Stallone impersonation. I do a better Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, but anyways, but I believe in that you have to get up and keep going. So thank you. That was a great definition. I love that
Yeah.
because you've lived it physically as well as emotionally.
I was going to say in Mississippi, I had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but I wasn't taking meds yet. And it was one of the races where I was having trouble and I fell a couple of times. Found a big old stick on the side of the road and I was using it like a walking stick, which helped tremendously. And I heard, I was going through a neighborhood and I heard a little boy say, "Daddy, what's that lady doing?" He said, "Son, sometimes you just do what you got to do." And she's doing what she's got to do. So that was a pretty good lesson right there for a sweet little boy who did not know what I was doing.
Yep. That's good stuff. Okay, Peggy, so this is the point of the show. We're getting close to the end of the show here. And this is the part where I call it "Get to the Chopper."
Get to the chopper!
Because we're at the end. We're getting ready for the helicopters to come and take us away back home. It's called exfil in the military terms. Time to head on out. And this is our time to kind of look back and reflect on what we talked about today. And it's a chance to talk about what out of the show, what stands out to you the most today, or what would you like listeners to take away from today's show, or your story, or what you want people to remember?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy is that exercise is medicine, and I want people to know that the first step may just be going around the block, and that's a good first step.
That is very well said.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that. My takeaway from today is just what you were talking about. You fall down, you got to get back up. I love that. I have to be reminded about that so much. And it was a chance for me to do my lame Sylvester Stallone impersonation. Any chance I get to do an impersonation, I like. So, you know, it's one of those things. But I do truly love that because life is not linear. Life throws curveballs with or without Parkinson's. It doesn't matter. There's always curveballs. There's always adjustments to be made. And we as human beings have to remember that when those times come and the falls happen, we do have to get back up, dust ourselves off, and just keep going. So
that sounded like a song from Annie. I pick myself up, dust myself off. And maybe it's not Annie.
It might be. I never saw Annie, so I don't know. Yeah.
It's definitely from a musical. So you could throw in some musical as well as your impersonations.
Well, I don't know Annie, but I do know Fiddler on the Roof. You know, sometimes I'll walk around the house going, "If I were a rich man." And I just go into the whole, you know, Tevye thing with Fiddler on the Roof, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a long movie, but it's a great movie. So, you know, I actually, fun fact, in the 80s, I had a cassette in my Datsun pickup truck of the soundtrack to Fiddler on the Roof when I was a teenager. So I literally know all the words to all the songs, and yeah, I'm that much of a nerd. Anyway.
Well, I'm the youngest of 5 girls, and I was the second to get married. And my dad walked me down the aisle, and they were, "Is this the little girl?" That song was on.
Oh my goodness!
So it's pretty special to me too.
Absolutely, great song. Oh man, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much for being on today. You have been a delight, not only to get to know you in person, but to have you on as a guest. And this is just wonderful. I know, would be on a shadow of a doubt, that you have touched some people today and that you've encouraged some people. And this is going to really be used by in a way to encourage and just push people forward. So thank you so much, Peggy, for that. And I look forward to seeing you soon next month in Vegas.
Sir.
That'll be a lot of fun. So
that
good
will
stuff.
Be. All right. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Peggy. And to our listeners, guys, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Guys, check us out on all of our platforms. We've got, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Amazon, and also on YouTube. We have YouTube at it's Mark in the Park Podcast on YouTube. So check it out there. And do me a favor, guys, if you can, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff, because that helps us build the listenership. So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening. Peggy, thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to ask everybody to keep their head up and keep exploring. Until next time, take care. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Mark in the Park, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps more people discover the show. For show notes, updates, and future episodes, or to connect, head over to markinthepark21.com. Got a guest idea or a topic suggestion? Drop me a line at markintheparkpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And to all my listeners, this is Mark Milow reminding you, life is as much about the journey as the destination. So enjoy the sights and sounds along the way. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep exploring.